Hey guys, welcome aboard, Apple here. Sorry I haven't been making a lot of videos lately, but I've been busy with a few things, including what I'm about to show you today. This is sim.tools, a website with a lot of neat features for a lot of your flying needs. So in this video today, I'm going to show you what it's capable of, what are the features, so let's get right to it. Right up front and center, we have the Conditions and Forecast section, which allows us to load weather conditions at airports, and METARs can be loaded from either NOAA or Vatsim. So let's go ahead and enter a couple of airport codes. And right away we see that both of these airports have VFR weather conditions. Each of these sections has a TAF and extra buttons. TAF obviously loads the current weather forecast, which we can look at, and the most interesting thing is the extra button. Right here we have the airport name as well as decoded weather, all in different units such as meters and statute miles and so on. We got the temperature dew point and humidity is calculated, as well as QNH pressure in different units, and QFE pressure is calculated as well. If you don't know what QFE is, we're gonna get to that in a few moments. And down here are all of the runways for this airport, Oshkosh in this case, and we see that some of them are highlighted in green. For instance, runway 36 is highlighted over here because it has the most headwind, which is what we want. The second best is highlighted in this lighter shade of green. And in the crosswind section, runways with the least amount of crosswind are highlighted. So we see that runway 36 is pretty much a no-brainer, isn't it? Most headwind, least crosswind, which is what we want. You can hide these, you can show these, do whatever you want. You can just hide them all together. Just look at this, if that's all you need to know. Moving down here, we have the wind component calculation, which could be useful for a few things, such as calculating crosswind and headwind components on landing and takeoff, which is what we see here. But it can also be useful in cruise. Say you're cruising along and you have a wind blowing at you at 50 degrees and say 45 knots. You're cruising at 300 knots. You can instantly see that crosswind component is 34.5, headwind almost 29 knots. Ground speed in this situation will be about 272 knots, and you're going to need to correct about 7 degrees into the wind to stay on track. Moving on down is the International Standard Atmosphere. ISA is pretty much what it sounds like. It's standard conditions at different altitudes. That can be useful in several situations because deviations from ISA temperatures can affect performance. In fact, they do affect performance. Say we're cruising at 29,000 feet and the temperature is minus 40 degrees. We can see the ISA temperature at this altitude is minus 42, and since it's minus 40 for us, it's a deviation of plus 2 degrees. Speed of sound actually only depends on temperature, and it's also listed here. And we have density altitude, which is useful for a few things. Basically, in these conditions, and to make this example more extreme, let's make the temperature minus 30. We're cruising at 29,000 feet, but because the temperature is higher than it should be, the air is less dense, and effectively we are cruising at 30,400 feet as far as aircraft performance is concerned. And also down here we have the Mach number calculated from the true airspeed entered right here. And density altitude can be also important for takeoffs and landings. Hey, we are taking off from an airport that's 4,000 feet elevation, and temperature outside is whopping 45 degrees Celsius. And we see that density altitude is 8,500 feet, so effectively you're taking off from an airport that's at 8,500 feet. And down here we have QFE calculation. Basically, if you enter QNH into your altimeter will be showing your current altitude above sea level, above mean sea level I should say. And if you enter QFE, it will show you altitude above airport elevation. That can be useful for a few things, and VFR flying in the UK is done with QFE pressure. Moving on down to the next tab, which is Maneuvers, which has a couple of interesting things. First is the Climb and Descent calculator. Say we're cruising at 25,000 feet, and we've been told to descend to 10,000 feet to cross a certain waypoint at this altitude, so let's dial in 10,000. Indicated airspeed is, say 240, we're going to be descending. 1,500 feet a minute sounds about right, and we have maybe a 15-knot tailwind, so let's enter minus 15 in here, and we know we have to start descending 56 miles before our waypoint. It's going to take us exactly 10 minutes to descend. This tool needs indicated airspeed entered because ground speed and true airspeed will vary at different altitudes and wind conditions, and what this does is calculate your true and ground speed at different altitudes. And descending from, say, 10,000 feet to zero, a drop of 10,000 feet, it's going to take us 31 miles. And say we're descending from 40,000 feet to 30,000 feet, which is also 10,000 feet, is 47 miles. It's different because our ground speed is going to be higher at higher elevation, and it's going to take us longer to descend. Down here we have the turns section. This allows you to calculate different turn parameters as you would expect, and this is useful for a few things. Occasionally you might need to comply to a certain turn radius on a departure or arrival procedure, and you can calculate what airspeed and what bank angle you would need. So let's just enter some examples here. Say we're going to be turning with a bank angle of 20 degrees. G-force, first of all, is going to be 106. Our true airspeed is going to be, say, 230. And we need to turn 70 degrees en route. We can see that the turn radius is 2.1 nautical miles. It's going to take us 41 seconds to complete this turn for the whole 70 degrees, and we need to start the turn about 1.5 miles prior to our waypoint on which we need to turn. That allows us to get on track pretty precisely, but of course you have to take wind into account. Say we need to turn 150 degrees. We're going to have to start 8 miles away to make that turn to end up on the new track perfectly. Moving on down still is the Airports tab. Right here we can get some basic information about an airport, obviously the name, the city, the country, the elevation, the coordinates, current local time, sunrise and sunset, both in UTC and local time, magnetic declination, available approaches, a list of runways with their links. Charts are currently only loaded for US airports because they are publicly available. And right here we have the airport diagram. In the future I might be adding other charts such as UK, which are also publicly available, so in the future you might see UK charts. And of course clicking on any of these, or even this, takes us right to the FAA site to load the chart. Down here we have the route database. This is currently populated with almost 3,000 routes, real flight plan routes from real airlines, mostly around Europe unfortunately for now. Let's say we're going from Heathrow, and from Heathrow we have quite a few routes available here. Say we want to go to Munich. We pick the route, there might be a few of them to this airport, 515 miles. Let's click this little button. This takes us to the next section, which is Route Plotter. And it did just that, it plotted our route here. And the green line is the great circle line between these airports. And down here we have the navigation log, which we can switch from kilometers to nautical miles, just like that. And it contains all of the waypoints on all of the airways along the route. And you can also enter departure and arrival procedures here, it will also draw them. And if we want to estimate how much it's going to take us, say we're cruising in a relatively small airplane, we're going to be doing about 230 knots, and it's going to take us 2 hours and 14 minutes at that speed. This of course does not take into account climb, descent, and things like that, which are going to slow us down some more. At 450 knots, it's just going to be over an hour. Down here finally we have NOTAMs, which is just what it sounds like. It's just a list of current NOTAMs for a particular airport. Moving on down still we have the Vatsim tab, which is probably one of the more interesting tabs, and it contains a database of Vatsim flights starting from the evening of April 3rd. There's nothing prior unfortunately, but it just keeps on collecting. Of course this is not a novel idea, but we have a few interesting features here. Right on the home page of the Vatsim section we have some statistics such as top airlines and top airports, top flown city pairs, longest flights. Someone actually flown for 15 hours and 44 minutes in these past couple of days, and someone else flown a whopping 20 flights. So what we can do here is we can search for something like an airport. Say we want JFK flights. Let's look at that. We got quite a few flights en route right now to or from JFK. Say someone's going from JFK to London. Not an unpopular route. And right here we have all the information you might want about this flight, such as what's the airline, its call sign, where it's from. We got the little logo in here, pilot, airports, aircraft type, registration, which is pulled up from right here from the remarks section. And of course we have the map. We got the flight plan route plotted, and it looks like the aircraft is following it perfectly, and we got the vertical profile and the speed graph right here. We can also go ahead and replay a flight. Doesn't matter if it's complete or not. You hit replay and you can see it moving down there. I can also manually scroll around to look at different sections of this flight if I wanted to. And we can click back on live and see what's happening with it right now. Let's go to the pilot. Looks like he's flown 4 flights in these past few days, and this is the 5th flight. So far, he's visited 6 airports in 4 countries, and his shortest flight was 690 nautical miles, and the longest was 783. Not a whole lot of difference. He likes a certain length of flights, it seems. Let's load a completed flight here. We got the whole track, we got the whole vertical profile, and what we can also do is export this into KML. And this, of course, allows us to take a look at this flight in Google Earth or other compatible applications. We can see the whole vertical profile, we can see the whole approach, and it looks pretty cool. So it looks like Gatwick to Innsbruck is a very popular route this week. 31 flights. Let's click on that. We got 3 flights going right now and 1 is departing. That is a popular route indeed. And here we have top 5 routes for this city pair. And we can see that there's quite a few. And this one in particular has been flown 7 times. So if you didn't find the route in a route planner, you can always go here, see what people are using. 7 times it's been used, it's probably okay. So moving on down, we have the checklists. Right now, there's only a handful of airplanes in here, but say we're flying a 737NG. Let's load the checklist, and all checklists in this section are either from the manufacturer or from a particular airline. And what's cool about this, it's very easy to follow along. You can just click on the items you have completed. As you complete the whole section, it turns green, so you can move right along and know where you are. The next tab is Airlines and Aircraft. This is just a database of airlines with their codes and call signs and aircraft type codes, which can be pretty useful if you don't know what's the right code for a particular aircraft or if you don't know what's the code for an airline. Maybe you've heard a call sign on a radio, you don't know what that is. Quality. There you go, TNT Airways. There's the code, there's the call sign. You can search by name, you can search by anything. EasyJet Switzerland, they actually have a call sign of Top Swiss, and EasyJet UK has a call sign Easy. Aircraft type database works very similarly. So we're flying a Beechcraft Bonanza. There's all the 4-letter codes that you might want to use. You got the Bonanza 36, 36 turbine, 33, 35, 50 twin Bonanza. You got all the codes right here. And finally, we have the converter, which is pretty much what it sounds like. Say you want to know how much is 500 knots in kilometers an hour, meters per second, feet per minute. Or maybe you want to know how much is 10 statute miles. Well, it's 8.69 nautical miles, almost 53,000 feet, and just over 16 kilometers. Same goes for pressure, for the weights, and temperatures between Celsius, Fahrenheit, and Kelvin. So there you go, guys. There's the quick tour of sim.tools. Notice the beta mark right here. It's still pretty much in development. What you see here should work just fine. Just expect an occasional bug. It might happen, it might not. And certainly, if you have any ideas, if you have any corrections, please get in touch. Up here, we have the feedback button. You can leave a message right here. There's also an email address here and a list of features that are currently planned or in development, so you know what's coming in the future. So there you go, guys. There's sim.tools for you. Hopefully you will enjoy using it. And once again, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.